Today is the 11th of October, 2017. I am Caleb. Anthony is not here. He is sick. So he could not be with me today. He is sick physically, emotionally, and every other way you can think of. And with who can really blame any U.S. fan for just being sick today after that disastrous performance against Trinidad and Tobago yesterday. I don't want to go into too much detail. Anthony and I are planning on having an in-depth discussion about this next week once everyone has had time to really digest everything. I mean, there were a lot of emotions last night when it happened, a lot of emotions this morning. A lot of things are being said. And, Anthony and I we've had a long conversation over text. And we're going to go into more detail on that next week. But today I do want to touch on some of the things that happened yesterday. Like I said, a lot of emotions. Teams were in of the World Cup, out of the World Cup, back in the World Cup, in the span of, 15 minutes. Goals landing here, there, not actually going into the goal, but being counted. I spent a lot of time online last night and this morning, and one of the reactions that I saw that kind of made me angry, I was on ESPN, which I think was my first mistake. I don't remember the author's name. I'm probably 100% wrong in saying this, but I think it was Jeff Carlisle. I don't even know if he writes for ESPN. But the article basically said, among other things, it was too much to ask for Mexico to return the favor 4 years ago when we saved them and their World Cup dreams from embarrassment. That was one of the points the author made. And that made me angry. It made me angry for a few reasons. Number one, we didn't owe you anything. And when I say we, I mean Mexico. Mexico football, Mexico soccer. Didn't owe U.S. soccer anything. Okay. Graham Susie scored that goal 4 years ago. And obviously Mexican fans, the media, were wishing him a happy life and health, and they made him into a saint and all this other stuff, and that was great. But the U.S. fan base criticized him. They criticized him. They said, why would you score that goal? Why wouldn't you not score that goal? Why would you help our arch rivals qualify for the World Cup? He was actually a villain on this side of the border, as he was a hero on the south side of the border. So it's not like Graham Susie scored that goal out of the kindness of his heart, or the U.S. team was like, you know what, let's go help them out and let's score some goals. This image of Mexico being on the ground, with mud all over our face and our jersey torn, bloodied up, and just coughing, and Graham Susie walking up to, with a ray of sunshine on his back and reaching down and picking us up and dusting us off and telling us to buck up, we'll do this together. And then us walking off into the sunset and qualifying as friends. That didn't happen. Okay? He got criticized for doing his job. He's a soccer player. He was meant to go out there and play soccer and win a game. And he did that. And he got criticized for it because of the rivalry between the U.S. and Mexico. And don't even pretend that didn't happen. The U.S. fan base did criticize him for doing it. So we didn't owe you anything. Had the tables been flipped, had the roles been flipped, and the shoe were on the other foot, and 4 years ago we had saved you, and this year we needed you to save us, you better believe nobody would be saying, you owe us. And you guys wouldn't be saying, we owe you. No. You wouldn't. So don't act. And I'm not saying this is a thing that everyone is saying. I've seen it a couple of times on the internet. Mexico owed us and they didn't come through. No, we didn't owe you. We didn't come through for. There was nothing to come through on. So don't act like you had helped us out of some sense of nobility and we just spat in your face 4 years later. That's not how it went down. Okay? The only reason it's not because the U.S. isn't in the World Cup because we didn't beat Honduras, it's because you didn't beat Trinidad and Tobago. That's number one. Number two, we did try. Okay? We did. Mexico went out and tried to beat Honduras. No question about it. I don't know how many U.S. fans watched the game on account that you couldn't watch the U.S. game because BNTV holds the right to away CONCACAF U.S. men team games. But I watched the entire Mexico game. And anyone who says we didn't try to beat Honduras is either a liar or doesn't know the sport, because we sure as heck tried. Okay, the players went out there with a mission. Our coach lined us up with a strong lineup. And even when we went down, he even strengthened the team. He put in Guardado, he put in Corona when we went down 3-2 to try to win the game. So it's not like he's like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and throw in the towel. We have nothing to play for. We were already qualified in first place. Who cares? No, he put in better players that were on the field to try to win the game back. And to be honest with you, I wanted us to win. I wanted us to tie. And there are many reasons for that. Number one, yeah, I wanted that narrative of us paying you back for 4 years ago. I think that would have been an awesome story. Not only that, I would have been able to hold it over my friends' heads for the next 4 years, like, oh, well, now we saved you and all this stuff, and it would have been good banter to have between each other, right? That's number one. Number two, we were on course to break the CONCACAF hexagonal points accumulated record. Had we won, we would have broken the record. I wanted that record. I wanted it. I wanted us to win, and I wanted us to break the record so that we could say this generation of Mexican players was the best generation in CONCACAF. The best ever in CONCACAF. And finally, and this is a little bit childish of me, but I wanted Honduras out. I wanted Honduras out because I hate them. And I think it would have been awesome to not only pay you guys back for 4 years ago, and at the same time eliminating Honduras from the World Cup. I think that would have been the perfect 2 for the price of 1. Like, there is no better deal out there, in my opinion, than if that had happened. I'm bummed out it didn't, guys. I really am, okay? But don't tell me we didn't try. Don't tell me we didn't return the favor. There was no favor to return. This is sports. This isn't a charity. And yeah, we tried. We tried until the final whistle. Honduras, after they went up 3-2, stopped playing soccer. There was no soccer to be had. After the balls would go out of bounds, Honduras players would just lay down. After every tiny little tackle, Honduras players would lay down. The same thing they did against Costa Rica. You guys remember on Saturday, they were doing the same thing. They went up against Costa Rica, and they started flopping around, getting hurt all the time, rolling on and off the field, wasting time, being cheating, dirty players is what they were doing. That's cheating, and it's dirty, and it's shameful. That's what they did. And Costa Rica managed to get a goal because they added 6 minutes. There should have been more time added today. On top of them wasting time on purpose, there were field invaders, which further wasted time. I don't think the referee accounted for the 2 pitch invaders in the last 10 minutes of the game, because those by themselves took at least 2 minutes. That's not counting the time wasting. And that's not counting the ball boys at the stadium hiding the balls and not returning the balls to the players so they couldn't restart the game. There was a concerted effort on the part of Honduras, the fans, and the staff to just drag the game out. I don't blame them for doing it. They were in. Had we tied them, they were out. And they knew exactly what they were doing. They cheated. I mean, the referee should have put an end to it. He should have started giving cards out, and he should have added at least like 7 minutes to the game. But all that, all that is irrelevant. Okay, because in the end, that's not what eliminated the U.S. I mean, at the same time, Panama got a phantom goal. Okay, the ball never went into the net. I don't understand how that could happen. I don't understand how you could not realize that the ball doesn't go in the net. The Panamanians thought they were getting a penalty kick. They weren't celebrating like they had gotten a goal. They were walking over to the penalty spot to like make sure that they got a penalty. Look, it was a penalty kick. This is what happened. The Panamanian player got fouled in the box. He fell over. This should have been a penalty kick. Instead, the ball, it's like on the line. It gets kicked off his chest and out of bounds. And the line judge called a goal. I don't want to turn this into like, oh, there should have been a replay or goal line. I mean, there should have been goal line technology. That's what should have happened. There doesn't need to be a replay. Just goal line technology is the only kind of technology that we need to review plays. And I think every game, every FIFA game should have goal line technology. That should just be a thing. But at the very least, you can say, okay, it wasn't a goal. It was a penalty kick. Assume that he's going to make the penalty kick. Because 9 times out of 10, penalty kicks are made. It's very difficult to block one. And as long as the thing's on target, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go in. So, yeah, it was a horrible call. It was a horrible goal to give for Costa Rica, who were very upset. But that still doesn't change the fact that the result you needed was a draw against Trinidad and Tobago, the worst team in the Hex. And that didn't happen. I don't understand why. I didn't watch. The broadcast I was watching would do like all 3 games at the same time. They would show the Mexico game, and then picture in picture they would show what was going on in Panama and what was going on in Trinidad and Tobago. And I mean, I don't know what to say. I really don't. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail of like my analysis of the long term, what I think the U.S. should do, because I want to say that for when Anthony's here. But it didn't look like the players were all that sad. I watched the interview with Bradley, the post-game interview with Bradley, and he didn't seem that upset. He was just like, yeah, we lost. I mean, their goal, the first goal, it gave them hope, and the second goal was a really good one. Yeah, that's how he sounded. He wasn't like weeping like I thought he would. A lot of people are saying like every one of those players is garbage except for Christian, which I think is a little harsh. My understanding is DeAndre Yedlin was also trying really hard. I think in the end, you can blame a lot of people. Here's the other thing that really annoyed me. People are like, I bet you Klinsman's vindicated right now. Oh, I bet you he's sitting in his home being like, should have been me. No, you idiots. Anyone who thinks that Klinsman would have done a better job, you're an idiot. Because Klinsman is the reason the U.S. were in this spot. It's not like Klinsman had the U.S. in first place and then Bruce Arena came and fudged the bucket. That's not what happened. Klinsman had you in the not qualifying zone, and Bruce Arena kept you in the not qualifying zone. So it's not like it got worse. It just didn't get better. You were in the same crappy situation you were in before. That's just so stupid. That's just ridiculous. You weren't better off with Klinsman. Okay? Klinsman was a terrible manager. He was a terrible coach. He didn't understand tactics. His players didn't like him. He argued with the media. He argued with youth soccer. He argued with everyone. Everyone was at fault except Jurgen Klinsmann at every point throughout his stint as coach. Maybe he's a great person to have hired to kind of like build up the program from the ground up, but he wasn't a good person to manage the team because he doesn't understand tactics. He was crap at it. And Bruce Arena was also crap at it. And the problem with Bruce Arena was he kept picking his friends. He kept picking the people he liked. Why in the hell? And don't tell me there's no one else. Don't tell me there's no one else. You call up a kid. Why is DeMarcus Beasley playing? Ever. The guy's like 50 years old. Oh, Bruce Arena, he's the guy that gave Beasley his first cap ever. So I guess, that comes full circle. But these guys are garbage. And I'm saying this with the full realization that after this World Cup cycle, Mexico is going to be in the exact same position that the U.S. was in this World Cup cycle. Our golden generation is over, okay? These are the guys that are in their late 20s, early 30s, were the kids that won the 2003 Under-17 World Cup. And these were like, in 10 years, these guys are going to be the ones, and sure enough, here they are. And yeah, this is one of the best teams we've ever had. Maybe the best team we've ever had. But after this, they're not all 30 yet. They're 27, 28, 29, 30. That's their age right now. And after this, in 4 years, some of them aren't going to be playing anymore. Some of them are not going to be in the 2022 World Cup. This is the chance these guys have to make something of themselves and to really push Mexico past that barrier that we've never been able to get past. And I'm saying this knowing that in the next World Cup cycle, we could be in the very same situation you guys are in, relying on players that are too old to compete, that aren't going to be in the World Cup. Oh, they'll get us there, but they're not going to be good enough to play. And we have kind of a gap. We have a gap in talent. Like, we have a bunch of 20, 21, 22, 23-year-olds, and we have a bit of a gap between 25 and 26, 27. And then we have the veterans. We're missing those 3 years, and the U.S. is missing those players as well. I think I don't have it in front of me, but 9 players are age 27 and below in the U.S. team that had any participation in these qualifiers. 9 players were 27 and below, I think, or was it 26? It might have been 26 and below, 27 and below. 14 were older. And I don't even remember the amount, but there was just an incredible amount of players that were like 29 and plus. More than almost double the amount that were 27 and below. And then you look at Mexico, and we have that core of younger players that are coming up and a couple of olders. You look at Germany, they have no older players. It's all core. It's all youth and core. The U.S. was in first. And that's going to be us, I think, in 4 years. So when I say this, trust me, I say it with the full realization that this is going to be us. And I don't want us to have happen what's happening to you. So when I say that you guys relied on crappy old players, and we are in danger of having that same problem. So I see it happening. I hope we don't allow it to happen, or else we could be facing another situation like this for us. But I've been saying it for a while. You guys relied on Clint Dempsey too much. Bradley needs to go. Tim Howard, what? What is he doing? There are so many things that people are saying, and I think a lot of them are true. I think the MLS is helping smaller teams in CONCACAF get better, and they're not really helping the U.S. because there's a cap. There's a limit as to how good you can get in MLS. And if you don't make the leap to Germany or England or France or Belgium or Portugal or the Netherlands, that's where you're going to stay. On the other hand, the gap between the Honduran League, the Jamaican League, the Panamanian League, and MLS is huge. Those players are getting better, leaving Costa Rica and playing for the U.S. And playing in MLS. They're getting so much better, like exponentially better. So that's why it's so difficult lately. With the rise of MLS, it's becoming more difficult to win in CONCACAF. Which brings me to something else that I want to say. I'm sick and tired of people that don't know CONCACAF to say CONCACAF is easy, CONCACAF is simple, or you can't even get out of CONCACAF, you're not good. You have no idea what it's like to play in CONCACAF away. You have no idea what it's like. Do I think the U.S. should have beat Trinidad and Tobago? Absolutely. Every single player on the U.S. roster is more talented than any player on Trinidad and Tobago's team. That doesn't mean it's an easy game. These games are not easy to play. People are like, Mexico and the U.S. would never qualify in South America. I guarantee you, you're a little prissy. Brazil and Argentina and Chile and Colombia, all these teams that are used to other teams that are good, you go ahead. Go play in Honduras. Go play in Honduras. I'd love to see that. Go play in El Salvador. Go play in Costa Rica. Go play in Panama. Go play in those countries. Away. You think it's easy? You have no idea. You have no idea. Yeah, Mexico is infinitely more talented than those teams. But you think it's easy to go to these third-rate stadiums with a hostile crowd? You have no idea the hostility. Okay? You have no idea the hostility. These aren't nice stadiums in Chile or Brazil or Argentina. They're not nice stadiums. They're crappy stadiums on crappy grass in a hostile environment. You didn't get much sleep. And the players are hacking at you for 90 minutes. You remember the Panama game a few days ago? They had to take Christian Pulisic off because they were worried they were going to break his legs, because that was the plan. You put Neymar out there getting hacked like Pulisic, he would have cried off the field. At least Pulisic he was more of a man than Neymar ever would have been. Neymar would have been crawling off the pitch, crying. Every Brazilian player would have been all over the ref, give them a card hand signal, crying. They're not used to how. You guys have no idea, South Americans, what it's like to qualify in CONCACAF. No idea. Are the teams weaker? Absolutely. Does that make it easier to play away in those stadiums? No. No, it's not. It's not easier. So shut up. You don't know what it's like. I want them to play. I would love to see these teams, these South Americans, play in Central America in a World Cup qualifier. I would love it. I would love to see them just like come out bruised and bloodied and mud all over, because that's what it would be like. It wouldn't be a pretty little game where there's like pretty passing and like nutmegs and back flicks and all that stuff. No, shut up. You're stupid. It's stupid. Ignorant idiots. CONCACAF is hard. CONCACAF is hard. The teams might not be very good. That doesn't make it easy. So stupid. Speaking of, Chile also didn't qualify, which I find good. I'm not bitter anymore. I'm not bitter about the 7-0. I'm not bitter about the 7-0 anymore, because to me that's in the past. I've said this a billion times. I don't care. What I hope that this does is make it so we don't talk about it anymore. And when I say we, I mean just soccer in general, Mexican soccer. The media can shut up about it. The U.S. media can shut up about it. And the fans can shut up about it. They didn't qualify. over. We didn't lose to like one of the best teams in the world anymore. They're not that anymore. Let's forget about it. Because now it's truly distant history. It truly is. These guys, they're done. Chile, like the golden generation, they had their golden generation and they're done. Okay, they're too old. They can't play that pressing style that they like, and it's over. The Chilean dream has come to an end. So I'm not going to make fun of them because not qualifying for the World Cup is embarrassing enough. So I'm going to leave that one alone. I just wanted to bring it up for two reasons. One, to say that it's over. Let's never talk about that again. Like if we needed another reason to never talk about it again. And number two, to bring up the very interesting point that I saw on the internet. Cameroon, African champions, didn't qualify. Chile, South American champions, didn't qualify. And the U.S., the most recent Gold Cup winners, didn't qualify. Which, I think that's kind of... yeah, that one was a deep one. That's kind of surprising. I did not expect, obviously, any of those teams to not qualify. I don't really follow Africa, so I don't know who's good and who isn't. But there were some close calls. Argentina almost didn't qualify. They ended up qualifying easily because the greatest player in the world stepped up and scored a hat trick. And that was the thing. I think that was kind of like subplot of yesterday. The U.S. needed to step up. They needed someone to step up. No one did. Not even Christian Pulisic. He didn't step up. Now, he scored the one goal, but he couldn't do it by himself. Now, I'm not so dumb to say that, well, if Messi did it, Christian should have done it too. Obviously, they're not in the same universe. Because, no offense to Christian, but nobody's in the same universe as Messi. So I didn't expect him to pull a Messi and score a hat trick and just drag the U.S. national team into the World Cup like Messi did. Messi literally chained himself up to a bus and dragged the bus with chains up the hill while it was snowing. And that bus is called Argentina. He did it alone. Only he could have done something like that. But the point is, he did it. Somebody stepped up. Obviously, without him, Argentina would be out. But somebody should have stepped up for the U.S. And nobody did. Something else that I wanted to... Taylor Twellman said yesterday is, the field conditions. The field conditions were poor. But I actually watched the game he was talking about. I watched Belgium and Bosnia. I watched that game. And I've played on better fields than Belgium and Bosnia played. That field in Bosnia, when Taylor Twellman called it a cow pasture, I think he was being generous. Because that thing was horrible. Belgium still managed to win that game. There was water on the track on the outside of the Trinidad field. And there were like 2,000 people there. And again, my point is, you can't rely on others. You can't make excuses. And it's all on the players. This is something I actually didn't say. I never completed my thought. It's not Klinsmann's fault. It's not Bruce Arena's fault. I think it's the players. I think it all rests on the players. It's the players' fault. The managers suck. Yes, the managers pick the players. Yes, but when you're on the field, you're still better than Trinidad. You're still better than them. And they didn't play hard. That was the problem. Yeah, Bruce Arena made some terrible lineup decisions. And so had Klinsmann in the past. But the players. When are the players going to be at fault? Everyone's like, oh, Klinsmann's vindicated. And everyone's like, well, Klinsmann wouldn't have done any better. Those are the two arguments between, like, what, would the U.S. have qualified had Klinsmann stayed in? I don't think so. I don't think they would. It would have been at least as difficult and as close as it was now. It's not like the U.S. would have just all of a sudden jumped to first. That wouldn't have happened. You can't blame the coaches. You can blame the coaches up to a certain point. But the national team's the national team. They played the same players. He didn't really change anything. He brought in a couple players. I know you guys had a few injuries. He didn't play Jeff Cameron. My understanding is he's your best defender. I think what's that other kid? John Brooks, he was hurt. But, everyone thought that after that Panama display, that the 4-0 that you put against them, that this was it. This was the sign. Everything is right. And, the odds. The odds of the U.S. losing, Costa Rica losing, and Mexico losing in the same day were negligible. And I said this last week. It's I said it's to the point where it's impossible. It's impossible for this to happen. And it happened anyway. So I think after everyone sits back for a week and really chews on the information, thinks about it, people will be able to make coherent arguments as to what needs to happen next. Because right now it's all emotion. And emotion is great. I think emotion makes for excellent day after, arguments and discussions and, being invited to, a talk show and just yelling about being angry that the U.S. didn't make it, and as well as you should be. And I think Galati should fire Arena today and then fire himself. I think he should step down. I think it's just a disaster. But all this, I hope we discuss next week when Anthony's here. I know he's got ideas that he's been chewing on, and I have things that I think would be extremely helpful long term. Because now you have 5 full years to kind of, erase the board, clean it, get new chalk, and start over. I think if you're going to look at a positive out of this, you get a clean slate. This is basically a clean slate. I still contend that this is not the disaster that a lot of people are making it out to be. I said it last week. I don't think this is the end of the U.S. But on the other hand, I didn't actually think it was going to happen. So anyway, I'm going to make this one a short one. I'm through for today. Hopefully join us next week as we talk the future of the USSF. What should they do? What should happen? So thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you guys next week.